evening, everyone. Welcome to the series of the Great Amrita Alumni Conclave. Students are all optimistic about the future. Once that student has reached a great height, we are proud of him or her to enlighten us about the knowledge that he or she has gained. Well, today the topic is about design, thinking, and paradigms. We have Sivakamy who will explain about the topic. She is working with Microsoft as a software engineer. She is an Amrita alumni of 2020 who has pursued MTech from computer science and engineering from Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham. So before getting into the session, if any of the participants have any queries, please type it in the chat box. So Sivakamy, I welcome you to the session. Therefore, we can start the series. Over to you right now.
Thanks a lot, Sachinji. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Amriteshwari Namaha. Pranams to Mohan Swamiji, because Sachinji told me that you had nominated my name for this talk. It's an honor for me to be a part of this event, and thanks a lot for considering me even worthy enough to be a part of this talk today. Thanks to the entire Amrita family for organizing this event, and to all of you who've tuned in and joined us today, even though it's a Friday evening, right? So my journey with Amrita, it started way back in my school. So I did my schooling from 7th to 12th grade in Amrita Vidyapeetham, Chennai, and later went on to do my master's in Amrita, Coimbatore. So it's very safe to say that my formative years in school and later my career defining year, I spent it in Amrita. So Amrita molded me into what I am today, and I'm forever grateful for that. So it's definitely a very humbling and gratifying experience to be a part of something that my alma mater, some initiative that my alma mater is taking, right? So when Sachinji told me about this event, then he told me you can choose any topic that you want to talk about. I was thinking, okay, what would be really relevant to the audience that is present here? A lot of you would want to, start out as entrepreneurs, start your own company. Some of you would want to do research and pursue your postgrad. And some of you would be eyeing a job in your dream company, right? So what is that one common thread? So I was thinking about it. And then I realized whether you want to start off on your own, whether you want to do a job, or whether you want to do research, there's one common underlying thread. The crux of all of this is the same. All of us want to be building efficient solutions for problems that we see around us, right? So I thought, why not just talk about that? So I'll probably share my screen now, and we can start off with the presentation. Sachinji, are you able to see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay. So let's give it time to load. As Sachinji mentioned, right? So the topic I had thought about was solution building in reality. So this common underlying thread is something that we need to understand. And why do we need to understand this thread called solution building? Why is it so important? That's because the industry today, right, it's very robust. And more importantly, it's gone to a stage where it is maturing, it is mature enough to look for innovative ideas. And they are taking the risk to invest on innovative ideas. And if you look at the startup ecosystem in India, it's very different from what it was probably 5 years ago, right? People are willing to take more risks. The processes are more streamlined, and we have a lot of ideas into how to enable and incubate ideas, make them into viable solutions, and probably even make unicorns out of them. So we're seeing this paradigm shift. So that's why I thought, let's talk about solution building in reality. So I hope you're able to see my screen now. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, when we talk about solution building, my talk is going to be wired around something that is called design thinking. Because design thinking is something that you have to be able to inculcate as a part of your day-to-day thought process for us to be able to develop viable solutions. Now, only if we have this kind of design thinking process as a part or inculcated as a part of your day-to-day activity, will you start looking at how to contribute the best to your industry. Because the industry is changing, the onus is up to us to be able to get there and make that a real impact where it matters, right? So when we talk about solution building, right, all of us, especially when we start out in our careers, we feel implementing an idea is the most important thing. We're all excited about having, to create something, show to the world that, see, this is what I've created. But then what a lot of us miss, what I missed also at the start of my career, is the fact that a solution is only as good as the value that it adds to the table. Now, what do I mean by value? A value is basically the purpose of why you want a solution for any problem, right? So why do you want a solution is a very important question, and it is a must that it should be solved for your project, product, or service to be anything to be successful at any scale. Now, this answer to this why, that's a very interesting point if you think about it. You'll get this answer to this question of why do I need a solution when you look at two scenarios probably. So one is when you see that there is a problem or an issue in an existing solution. That solution could be a product, it could be a process in your company, or it could be a service that you're offering. So there is a service, there's a solution, but there is an issue or a gap in that particular solution, right? The other way to look at it is, there is an issue because there is no product that is helping me solve that issue. It could be a new product, a revolutionary product altogether. Most of the companies, most of the businesses, if you look at it, could be classified into one of these two, right? So that is probably where you should be concentrating on thinking about it. So that's the first thing I probably learned, when I started off in my career, to find a purpose. Now, that's very interesting. Now you ask me, great, sounds very fancy, but how do I find a purpose? Finding the right problem statement is very difficult, right? And that's the case even when you're a student writing your thesis. It's the case when you're a professional working in a company or starting out on your own. So finding a problem statement is something that is still a bit cloudy for a lot of people. Trust me, you're not alone. It is so even for a lot of professionals who really work in companies as well. But I'm going to tell you something that I've learned along the way, something that my mentor taught me that changed my life into looking for this question of what a purpose is, right? So I'll probably tell you this story. So when I started off in Microsoft, I got this chance to work as an intern with our technical architect of the team. And we were trying to build this very ambitious deep learning project. So we tried a lot. I worked for 6 months on that project. It was very challenging, but I put in a lot of effort. I learned a lot from my team, and I was able to deliver the product at the end of the day. So there was a deep learning, functional deep learning model that was performing very well at the end of the day. I was very excited. I'm like, yeah, my internship is over and now I'm going to join as a full-time employee. So I'll probably be able to get to work on this model and see and create like cool products, right? So I joined the company. I get a shock. I am being put in this project where we are building a solution from scratch, and nowhere can I see anything about a deep learning model, any scope for AI or ML. They're not even talking to me about it. Every time I ask my manager, he's like, we'll see later, right? So I was still learning in this project because it was new. I was new to the company. I was learning whatever tasks I need to do. I was doing them well, but this was in the back of my head. I built a model, like that should be used somewhere, right? I can't just build a model and forget it. So I got this chance to talk to my manager's manager, my super boss, and he's also my mentor, right? So when I spoke to him in one of my one-on-one interactions with him, I said, see, we've created this model, and I think I would be a better fit if I was working on probably an artificial intelligence like solution, because I really am passionate about that domain. So he looked at me, he paused and he looked at me up and down and he said, okay, Sivakamy, you want to add intelligence to a product, right? I was like, yeah. So what product will you add intelligence to? I said, yeah, see, I'm a part of this project, right? We're building it now. I think there's a lot of scope for AI, ML. I'll study and I'll get back to it. He was like, okay, you want to build intelligence to a system, but do you know the system? I was taken aback because I had just joined the company and we were just building that system. So there were a lot of gray areas. Then he didn't wait for my answer. He asked me, do you know what are the stakeholders in the system who are all involved in this system? I said, no. Do you know what my organization actually does in this company in Microsoft? What our organization does? I didn't have the answers to that. So he smiled and he saw that I was getting overwhelmed. So he smiled and he said, Sivakamy, you are too close to your idea. You're looking at your idea so close that you're forgetting that there's a world when you are not just looking at one part, stepping back and looking at the whole picture. So that was a very, very big learning for me. He said, Sivakamy, pause, step back, think about the big picture. I didn't know initially what he meant, but then I took his word, I trusted him. I went back to the drawing board and I was like, okay, now where am I? I was working in this project. So where does it fit in the big picture? It was like, building a puzzle, assembling a puzzle. I didn't have all the answers on my own. So I had to reach out to 30, 40 people in my organization. I was constantly reaching out to people, trying to figure out what the domain is all about, trying to piece together a neat puzzle. And over time, what happened was I actually started understanding the end-to-end flow that my organization was working on. So I was able to see the bigger impact of it, something that I did not see earlier when I was just looking at a very micro level, right? At one level, I was looking at my idea, my model and all. But now I could see the entire project. And because there was a puzzle in front of me, I could see how things interacted with each other. I could also see gaps in the system. I could see that some puzzles are missing. Some puzzles don't fit there at all. So these were learnings that I had. I started documenting these learnings. I started thinking more about these learnings, right? And I started talking about these learnings to other senior members, trying to get their opinion on why certain things were done in a certain way. I spent months doing this activity, right? So that is when I understood how important it is to see the big picture. I was able to see paths that I never saw before. I was able to see opportunities that I never saw before. I never saw coming my way actually. So yeah, we're thinking about piecing together the puzzle, right? And when I was seeing all these parts, what happened was there was a transition that happened. So slowly, instead of being the person who's asking the questions, reaching out and trying to figure out stuff, people started understanding that, okay, she has some knowledge about the system, and people started approaching me when they needed clarifications, when they needed to brainstorm, because I knew parts of the system that probably a lot of other people did not know, because of this simple exercise that I was carrying out on a day-to-day basis, right? So it expanded my network like anything. So the byproduct of seeing the big picture is something like this. You get opportunities within your company, you get visibility within your company, which is very important in your career progression. So just that one word from my manager who said, step back, see the big picture. So many things, so many impactful points were there, and that touched my life. So this is what I would try to give you. To find a purpose, the first step is to see the big picture. Right now, you can probably tell me, yeah, I'm seeing the big picture, right? Okay, let's take an example now. Okay, there was this company, Ola, that said, I can see the big picture. I can see that globally electric EV is going, is booming, and India is a great market. And they thought about a problem statement. They found their purpose. What was their purpose? They said, we are going to build affordable, translate to cheap, affordable electric vehicles that are going to fit into Indian roads. Meaning what? They can't do a car. Not all cars are going to fit into every street, but a scooter Indians love. So scooter would be the option. And most importantly, they wanted to do it as an affordable EV, and they marketed that as an affordable EV. Great, right? It sounds like a great problem statement. But this happened. This happened, and their brand tanked. Their brand value went for a toss. Now, why did this happen? When we talk about affordability, affordability means reduced cost. Reduced cost means reduced quality. So as soon as they decided that their problem statement was going to be affordability, they lost the plot that what we really needed in the Indian market right now was quality products that people could rely on, people could purchase and be happy about. So that's where they missed the plot. Now this got me thinking. This happened recently, right? So this got me thinking, wow, it's not enough if I just find a purpose. This is not enough. What do I need? I need to find a good purpose, right? For want of a better word, good, but I hope you get the point, right? You need to find a good purpose, a worthy enough purpose. Now you'll again look at me and be like, how? How do we find a good purpose? Honestly, there is no one correct answer to this question. Theoretically, there are like a lot of ways that people will, tell you that it's possible. But then in reality, I'll tell you what probably has worked for me. I first was always thinking, okay, a good purpose means we have to build like a big project, a big product, like Facebook, like Twitter. That would be like a good purpose, right, to have in life. Yeah, that would be great. But then, as uninspiring as it sounds, not all important problems are going to be that glamorous, are not going to be that extravagant, and they need not be that extravagant. A simple example for that is Atlassian. Now, Atlassian, they built this product called Jira. Now, what does Jira do? Jira is a software that is going to track your tasks and bugs. So it's basically going to help developers and ease out their day in tracking whatever work they have to do, right? Very simple as a concept, very difficult to implement. That's a different case, but simple as a concept. But see, they implemented that, and they're a $10 billion company. So what I'm trying to say is, even the simplest of problems could have a lot of impact if only we put our mind to it. And should it, next the question would be, should it be a product or a service that I'm building? I thought so too. I thought for a very long time that it should be that. But then something happened about 2 months ago in my life that changed my entire perspective, and I'd like to share it with you. So what happened was, I was working on this project, and this project involved some manual work on a day-to-day basis. I was spending 20 minutes doing like a routine task continuously, right? So I was thinking, I was getting bored of it. I was like, morning, first thing I'm coming, doing a manual work, I'm not happy with it. So I'm very lazy that way. So I said, okay, let's see if I can automate it. Let's build a tool that will automate it. I just spent like a few hours. It took me probably 1.5 days to completely finish it. I spent a few hours. I was able to automate what I wanted to. I was very happy. I was like, yeah, okay. So I started using it on my day-to-day basis. And there came a time when I had to talk to my mentor. So this mentor is a different mentor. This mentor is actually the principal architect of the team, the person I did my internship with. So he was asking me like, how is it going and all. I didn't have anything interesting to say. So I thought, okay, let me say that I did something apart from my work. So let me impress him. So I told him that. I didn't think a lot about it. I thought we'll just talk about it and he'll be like, okay, good. I told him this idea. Then he said, Sivakamy, do you understand what you've done? I said, no. So let's see if this is even a good thing to do, a good solution to have, or a good purpose to have, right? So he said, how long do you spend on a daily basis? I said 20 minutes, 25 minutes max. So he said 20 minutes per developer per day, right? So you work for 20 days. We have 20 working days, let's consider. So when we say 20 minutes per person per day, you work for 20 days, that's 400 minutes, which is what? 6.7 hours per month. And you work for 12 months that way. So pretty much 80.4 hours per year you work. Okay. Now he went to Glassdoor and he was like, okay, what's the annual salary take home the net pay that software engineers have, because you're targeting this at a software engineer. He found that it was 26.5 lakhs or something. So we narrowed it down. For easy calculation, we said, okay, let's consider 24 lakhs per annum. So monthly it is 2 lakhs. And per day we calculated what the amount was. We multiplied that with this 80.4. Now, what did we get? We got 10.7 crores, which means I would be saving 10.7 crores if this tool were to be used by even 1,000 employees. We calculated this number for 1,000 employees, considering that 1,000 software engineers will use this. And the number is definitely not 1,000, it's definitely more than that. So think about an impact. Just one tool, one small automation tool was able to drive this kind of an impact, this kind of cost saving. I don't know, I was very happy. I was like, I didn't know about this. But he taught me this lesson. He said, Sivakamy, developer productivity and optimizing solutions are extremely key factors that you have. If you're able to identify any opportunity that you have on a daily basis, how do you identify that? Things that are a problem for you is that as a developer is a developer productivity issue. Consider it that way. Spend some time, work on it. You will probably realize that you would be creating this kind of impact. Now, this taught me that no problem is too small, but I did not initially get it. So what was missing in my step was that I wasn't quantitatively analyzing if there was any impact that it added, right? So this process with my mentor, it actually taught me that, hey, maybe when I have a solution, to see if it is a good, or when I have a problem statement, to see if it's a good problem statement, I have to see what kind of quantitative impact it brings onto the table, right? So that is one way of doing it. Now, if you think about the global problems, not all problems can be quantified and bottled up into a number. You can't do it for every problem. So what do I do in that cases? So that's when we have to identify people who will probably be using the product or the solution you're building. We call these people the target audience or the end user. So try to identify who the users are, the end users are, try to interact with them, talk to them about their concerns, and talk to them about how, what kind of issues they face. Is this a relevant issue that you're thinking about, and what impact it would generate? So you can document all of that. So this involves, say, research. You can conduct surveys, you can conduct questionnaires, and you can compile all these results together. The more people you reach out to, the more perspectives you get. So these perspectives are all potential features that could be a part of your solution. So please remember that this process of identifying your impact is very, very important. Now, this is something when we talk about this in the academic view, right? This is what we probably do in the literature survey section of our paper that you're writing or the thesis that you're giving. So you see what existing solutions are there. You identify what problems are there, right? And you see, okay, how would something different, if I do something different, what would be the impact? So you quantitatively identify those and do that. Now, you've identified those, great. Should I stop there? No. Once you have this kind of requirements, jotted down from your target audience or your end users, you have to see which are relevant, and you have to see what do I need to build that. So you have to see hardware requirements, you have to see software requirements, and most importantly, you have to see if you have any dependencies. Are there any problems that you foresee in this? Who are the stakeholders I need to talk about? I need to talk to about this system. So all these are also important. So these are also things that you need to keep your mind open to, right? So now this happens. Great. You've done all this work. Amazing. Now, next step, at least what I think would be a really relevant step here is you have this documentation done. Go talk to someone who you trust. It could be your team member. It could be your mentor, but seek active feedback. Talk to them openly about the solution or the idea that you have, the problem statement that you have, and what you think is the relevant idea that you are going to propose. So you start thinking about it, you start talking to people, seniors about it, who have experience to say whether it's first economically feasible, whether it's technically a viable product at the end of the day. So all this information you'll get. You can't do it on your own. you will have to learn from people. You have to leverage others' ideas and build on top of it. Now, mostly in companies, what would happen is we would all take this idea, go into this conference room, shut ourselves in, we'll rip it apart. It will be bloodbath where people are debating very, very passionately for each topic. That's how it happens in in a company, and you should be ready for that. You should probably mentally prepare yourself to be open to that. If you have an ego, right, it will be very difficult to interact. So try to use your college days as a platform to try to work on openness, try to listen, try to work on your communication skills. So all these actually help when you are in a company, when you become a professional, transition from a student to a professional. These things will actually help you in the process of identifying things that are worthwhile for working, things that you want to innovate about. Now, I did all of this process for months. On what? On the idea that I initially had, the deep learning model that I initially spoke to you about. So it was about a year, in fact. So after a year, I compiled all these results. I compiled all these, even the target audience. I compiled what I think would be the quantitative benefit, right? I went to my manager and I was like, please consider. Okay, I gave this project proposal, and you wouldn't believe, simply because I understood the system well, right? I had plugged a lot of gaps in between. My solution was now more mature, and I got a lot of feedback, yes, and I was open to it. There was like 3 iterations of that project proposal. We finished those, and today, in fact, yesterday, I got a call from my manager saying that the project proposal has been accepted. So we're going to be starting work in the next 2 months. Things can happen out of nowhere only if you let it happen to you, only if you're open enough to let it happen to you. And of course, you have to put the hard work in the initial days of your career. If you put that hard work in the initial days of career, you will gain the knowledge by the time to be able to leverage that knowledge and start building on top of it, right? So when you have that knowledge, it's a great platform for you to develop and go ahead. So that's where we talk about narrowing down objectives, right? So when you start off with a project, the feedback that most people will give is to see what are the 1 or 2 items that you would want to solve. So you would have to do something called a prioritization. You would say, my target audience said they have so many problems. Now we will start looking at, okay, what is the most relevant problem? We would start listing them down in that priority. And that way you will start picking out things that you want to do, and it can be in a phased manner, right? So these are things that probably keep your eye and ears open. So when you're in a company or when you're starting out, it would be really helpful if you have these things in your mind and are mentally prepared for it. Great. So now I have all of this done. What's the next step? I need to be able to design the solution. I have everything about the problem statement. I have an objective. The next step is to see what is the best way to achieve this. So I'll talk about what my solution idea is. I will have to debate with people. I will have to first gather a lot of information on what different technologies are there. So all that steps will have to be conducted. It's a grueling process initially, again, as I mentioned. So there'll be a lot of architectural options that you have. So you could probably build a serverless architecture. You could build a client server architecture, or you could build a distributed system. Options are like a plenty. So it all depends on what solution you're trying to build, the use case that you are trying to build, right? So how do I understand that? There is, again, it's an acquired skill. There is nothing that you can do in a day. It is something that you have to study. There are a lot of theoretical studies on this. Spend time, understand all of these, right? And most importantly, once you're in a company, shadow seniors when they are talking about design. Ask them questions. See what questions they are asking. Observe them silently in a call. See what kind of relevant questions they're asking. What that will do is it will help you understand what the right question is to ask in the right time. Okay. And it will also tell you their take on what would be the perfect solution in a particular use case. So maybe in future, if you see a similar use case, you probably will remember that, okay, that person said, so why not think about that as an option. At least keep that open as an option. So these are things that you will have to do, and this will not happen on your own. No one's going to give you this opportunity on your own unless you're very lucky. So sometimes you will have to volunteer yourself. Be open in seeking that kind of help, seeking that kind of information from people. Volunteer yourself. Ask them if you can shadow them in conversations, right? And a lot of people would be more than happy to do so, would be more than happy to help you out. So architecting solutions as a skill is something that is important, and maybe not in the initial days of your career, but it would be something that is more of an acquired skill. Over time, once you get promoted, you will be eventually doing this thing at the end of the day, right? Now, when we talk about architecting solutions, one thing that is very important today is to see how I can equip myself. So as I told you, there's this theoretical studies that you can take care of. But what is the other flip side of it? Like, is there something I can prepare? Definitely yes. The world today runs on cloud. So try to see if you can master any one cloud service provider. There are many certifications that are there. Try to see if you can do that. When you do a certification like that, also try to see for what use case, what kind of resource are they recommending. So if you do that process right, you will start looking at this design process, this architecting solution process, and know for what kind of solution, what kind of architecture would suit, right? Now, should it just be in this process? I thought so for a long time. And something happened, with my colleague. Okay. He was working on a solution which involved two operations, basically. So one operation had 6 API calls and the other operation had like 4 API calls. And there was a system that was existing which was doing this process. Now he sat back and he was like, okay, now I have this as my use case. I have to build a solution for it. Now, what would be the best way? A lot of us skip this step. We see data and we're like, okay, I'm going to implement. But no, he actually did something amazing. He sat with a whiteboard and he said, I'm going to start looking at whether I'm designing this right. And during that process, he realized that there was an overlap between the operations of 3 API calls. So earlier, he had to make 10 different calls, and he found out that 3 calls in each were actually overlapping. So he did some experiments, and he found out that if he takes those 3 out, there would be no impact on the solution. So he decided to take those 3 operations out and then branch out, parallelly call operation A and operation B and finish the process. Now you could ask me, so what? Just calls, right? No, he reduced 10 calls to 7 calls. And on a daily basis, not on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, there were at least 12,000 operations. That 12,000 times this whole a process was being triggered. So that's 12,000 into 3 that he saved. 36,000 calls he had saved. And each call actually costs us a lot of money because it was a dependency call, right? By just looking and revisiting his design of that particular implementation, he was able to save 36,000 API calls. A big eye opener for me, because it's very natural for all of us as developers, all of us to skip this step and be like, okay, it's easy. I have this data, I'll write this. But no, we all learn about something called complexity, right? Time complexity and space complexity. We read about it, but my colleague applied it, right? So it was a big eye opener for me, where I said, right, I have to now look at things on a deeper scale, try to understand that. So that's why DSA, data structures and algorithms, is going to be your bread and butter. It's going to be something that is going to save you forever in your career. It's going to save you forever. So concentrate a lot on DSA and make sure that you are constantly keeping yourself updated. So try to contribute to lead code, try to be a part of hackathons, right? That would really help in the process, and it will also keep you open to newer ways of doing things, right? So that's one thing. And from the solution that my colleague had done, right, I understood one thing. He had looked not just at implementing something and finishing it off. He was looking at a very important concept called optimality, right? Optimality actually means we have to widen the gap between cost and benefit. It has to be like this. Cost has to be low, but benefit has to be higher. So the wider this positive gap is, the better. So he had actually built a very optimal solution. Anything apart from that would have been a solution. It would have worked. It would have been a correct solution, but it would have not been an optimal solution. So try to see how you can equip yourself like this in order to build optimal solutions. So you can do a cost benefit analysis. You can study complexities to equip yourself to do this, right? So we've spoken about problem statements, we've spoken about target audience, we've spoken about design. Now, the next step is obviously implementing. So that's where people come in, software engineers, QA folks, testers. QA is quality assurance. So if you see in legacy companies, right, there were a set of people who develop projects. There were a set of people called QAs and testers who would test that project, give bug reports back to engineers. Engineers would work on it. So that's how it was happening for a very long time. But there's a paradigm shift in how this is happening. From just software engineers, people are looking for DevOps engineers, who is a developer and an IT operationalist. Now, what does it mean? It means end-to-end you take care of. You start with design, you start with implementation, you do testing, and you also maintain that code. So it's a cycle that you have to keep doing on and on and on. And the demand for DevOps engineers is huge. So try to see if you can read up more on it. One way to start is definitely to look at Agile as a concept, not just theoretically, but see how it is done in the industry. Try to learn tools like Jira, try to learn tools like JIT, contribute a lot to JIT, and try to equip yourself by the time you're coming into a company, because this is going to be your bread and butter at the end of the day. So go Agile, think about it, learn all these concepts, right? Another thing about implementation that I've learned, when we are students, right, we code in a certain way, but there are engineering practices that are in place in companies which would really ask you to, and which would mandate that your code has to have some quality. So this is something that you have to go and on your own proactively look at. Now, how do I look at that? Definitely ask your seniors to review your code. As soon as you write your code, ask them to review your code. Another thing that you can do, something great that you can do, is to read existing code. So initially, you probably would have written something in 10 lines of code, and then you see some code in your code base that can do the same operation, but in 3 lines, and you see that it's an efficient solution. So you can learn. Next time you have something similar, you actually write the code that way. So you have to read a lot of code, right? And another very important question that people ask me here when it comes to implementation is, should I learn many languages? Like, how many languages should I learn, right? Tech stack is important, but it's important for people who are a little experienced and who are trying to develop a niche. But when you're a fresher, right, your problem solving skills is more important. So try to focus on how well you're solving a problem, how optimally you're solving a problem. You can always learn new languages on the go. You can learn one language properly, one object-oriented language, one functional language. Just do it properly, and probably learn Python or R. That's very important these days if you are looking for a data scientist kind of a role. But learn one of these languages, right, completely. I'm talking beginner to advanced. Learn it completely, and then also work on your problem solving skills. So that will be enough. You'll be able to crack the interview, get into your work, and then as your work demands, you'll be able to learn languages at will. And this is something that I have learned from experience. I've also learned from people. A lot of my friends tell me this. They just take the plunge, go to a different company, and they learn things on the job. And that's totally cool. So don't be worried about not knowing a specific language. Focus on learning one language, but learning that right. Okay, so this is one question again. So as we spoke, definitely work on Agile, definitely work on those concepts. Another thing that you would want to do when you are an engineer is to look at principles that you would apply for engineering excellence. So there are principles like solid principles, which you will want to learn about. It's a very important interview question as well. And it also helps in reviewing your code personally. When you're writing code itself, it really helps in writing very clean, neat code. So try to see if you can learn on those concepts. It's called SOLID, solid principles. It's an acronym. So try to read up on those concepts, right? So if you do all of this, right, it is going to take a long time, but give yourself that time. Don't be judgmental about, oh, I'm going to take so much time. What will my manager think about me? No, have open conversations with your managers. That is only the right way to do it. They will also be very considerate. If you talk to them and say that I want this help, they'll definitely provide you the platform to do that. But a lot of people, right, hesitate. They think probably, it's not the right thing to do, or probably my manager will judge me. No, try to see how you can best communicate what you feel so that there's a lot of transparency between you and the people you work with, right? Great. So now we've spoken about implementation. Now, definitely the next step, you have to do a lot of testing. Yes, there are tools for that. So you can talk about it. You can learn about it when you do DevOps. Try to do courses, try to talk to people. You'll understand all of this. Now, after testing is done, right? So you'll have a product that you have built. You've tested all of that. Now, what is important is at the end of the day, when your product goes live, is it satisfying things you set out to do? That is called deliverables, right? What are you trying to deliver? This has to be very, very precise. And this will come actually from the objectives that we define. That's why I said we have to narrow down objectives and we have to have clear-cut idea on what the deliverable is. A lot of people, when they start out, right, they miss out on this. They'll probably overcome it and not be able to deliver what they committed. So you have to be very mindful of what you commit to when you're starting work. So have clear-cut understanding of what deliverables are. If you're not being told in your job what your deliverables are, ask for it. Ask for what I am expected to do. Having a clear-cut understanding of this increases the transparency. It also gives you a lot of clarity and peace of mind on a day-to-day basis, right? And definitely there's this concept of success criteria. Remember these terms because these terms will be coming in as a part of your job or as a part of your research or a part of your probably the products that you build. You will have to talk about these to your investors. You'll have to pitch this in front of your potential investors, right? So there's this concept called success criteria. When will I say that I am satisfied with my product? So this is what I actually did when we were doing this thing about productivity, engineering productivity. If I am able to quantify that I am saving 10.7 crores for 1,000 software engineers use, I'm saving 10.7 crores. That is a quantifiable success criteria for me, right? Success criteria can be quantified. It can also be something qualitative. So qualitative, you'll have to take feedback and see, okay, is this product really helping people? So you'll have to collate all of that. You'll have to analyze all that data and the cycle goes on and on. So it's a cyclic process. Now, all that we've spoken about from start to finish today was, I was talking about it from my perspective, things I've learned along the way, right? I actually realized while I was reading a book that this all actually comes under a very important scientific theory, scientific process called design thinking. So that's why I've named my topic itself design thinking. So design thinking is, as you can see, a circle. It's a cyclic process where you conduct research to develop understanding of your users. You have to step back, understand your big picture, talk to your users, talk to your target audience, and then see research on where your user problems are. Gaps in the puzzle. Remember gaps in the puzzle. Ideate. Come up with ideas that will solve the issue that is there. Brainstorm with your team, rip apart your problem, okay, and see what best things that you can do. Narrow down your objective. Once you narrow down your objective, you will probably have to build a prototype. A small part of it, you'll be building something called POCs, right? Proof of concept. You're just trying to see if whether the idea is viable. So that could be a part of your job. You'll be building prototypes. Once you build the prototypes, you test. As we saw, DevOps engineers would do all of this, right? And then once you're happy with all the tests, you fully implement the project. And then what did we see finally? We saw deliverables and we saw success criteria. As soon as you get your success criteria, you hit your success criteria, you start looking at how my code is performing. You start gathering analytics on what could be done better. again, the cycle starts. So this is actually amazing. It's an amazing study that's happened. And to be very honest, it's a very effective way in building solutions. So be aware of it. We read all of this as a part of our software engineering course, but none of us really pay attention to this. And I've realized after so many years in Microsoft that this is my lifeline. This is what keeps it going. What will differentiate between one person's work and the other is the innovation that they're able to drive, is something different, something extra they're able to bring on the table. How will you do that? With design thinking. So I really hope this talk helped you guys. It's given you some sort of context on what you could do, what you could expect in your job. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll give my handle in the next slides. And before I sign off, right, I'll talk to you about one thing. In my process, the entire thing, in my entire process, one thing that's been common is that at each point, whenever I was confused, I always had a mentor I could reach out to. This mentor was someone whom I trusted. This mentor was someone who was guiding me through processes. They were senior people who've been in my shoe before. So they knew how to guide me, how to correct my course in case I'm going wrong. So always find yourself a mentor who's compatible with you, who's not making you feel threatened, someone whom you can talk to very freely, have frequent one-on-one conversations. And these mentors would be people who are going to drive your career forward. So have a career development plan. Talk about it freely to people. That will really help you in your career. And to do all of this, you need to have something called growth mindset. You need to be open. You can't say that I know everything. You can't be in that micro thought process. You will have to open yourself. Be vulnerable for a small span of time. It's okay. Especially in the start of your career, it's really cool if you're showing your vulnerability out, because that way you will get help. You will show that you're open and you will get opportunities. So always strive for growth mindset. So the choice is yours, and so you have to choose wisely. Thanks a lot. And this is my LinkedIn handle. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, just hit me up here and we can probably have a chat. So thanks a lot.
Wow, that was a very beautiful section from Sivakamy. So, well, thank you for all the participants. Thank you, Sivakamy, once again. And let's call it a day.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.